Welcome to the Building Savages podcast.
New favorite fitness podcast.
I'm your boy Terrence, aka Building Beast.
I'm Evan Perez, aka EP.
On this podcast, we talk to our fellow coaches, athletes, and everyday gym goers about health, fitness, business, entrepreneurship, self growth, and so much more. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe, or
We'll find you and make you smash the subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed today's topic.
I saw a really good thread from, I like to give props when it's due. There was a coach that I follow, Lee Boyce. I don't know if you heard of him before.
I don't think I have, honestly. But
But he brought up a really good point of like at first it threw me off because he said like the obsession with progressive overload. So I'm
yeah,
like, okay, like we know that's a pretty standard training principle. But he pretty much went on to go in the conversation of people who chase numbers and what like their longevity starts to look like in terms of strength training or just really with their bodies like over time.
yeah,
And it just kind of took me back to like my journey after powerlifting and just kind of knowing how beat up I was starting to get because I wasn't prioritizing a lot of other things in my fitness and in my strength training to
mhm,
where I was becoming so efficient in those three patterns, squat, bench, and deadlift, and maybe at the most push-ups and pull-ups and kind of where it kind of ended for me at that, if I'm being honest. So I was having so many I was having so much lack in other areas of my body. Like laterally, I couldn't move good. Rotationally, I couldn't move good. Single leg, forget about it. It just didn't
yeah,
even exist for me at that moment. So he was just saying like the idea of chasing numbers, how it really has a shelf life for a lot of people, and over the time, like it's almost more detrimental to you than it is beneficial.
for sure. I think chasing numbers is just like it's a young man's game. And obviously we're not old, but chasing numbers is a young man's game. And I think as you get older and you get more well deeper into the well of training, you understand like there it's gonna start capping. Like at a certain
Yeah.
point, you start plateauing because like you're just focusing on certain things. Like there's numerous ways to progress, and like it just doesn't have to be by the numbers. You can be by the technique, by the way that it feels, time under tension, like partial movements and different kinds of styles of movements. Like I think everybody has this affinity fixation with the barbell squat, bench, and deadlift, that there's a whole bunch of other exercises that you can get better at that will actually give you a bigger bang for your buck in whatever you guys want to do than just those movements. But that's another topic for another day. But progressively overloading is the prime way to build muscle and build strength. But there's going to be a point where like that's going to be capped. What else can you do to progress yourself without actually damaging yourself? Because again, like you said, like you're gonna get beat the fuck up if every single week you're gonna gain you're gonna go up 5 pounds. And if you think this way, like if you think this way that you're gonna go up in weight 5 pounds for the rest of your life in every single thing, bench, deadlift, we should be lifting 5,000 tons by now. Like we should all be gigantic gorillas and fucking monsters if we
Yeah.
progress like that. So there's no physical way that we're able to do that, and that's fine. Just find different ways to do it. Increase the reps, increase the time under attention, increase the sets, decrease the number of reps. There's so many varieties that you guys can do that will not only get you stronger in the long term, but will also like prevent from getting banged up and being so injured all the time because you're constantly banging at the same door and not getting through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I like a lot of the factors that you brought up, right? Where it was like increased volume, increased sets, increased tempo,
Yeah.
right? So when we think of progressive overload, typically we just kind of think of numbers. But at the end of the day, overload is just resistance.
Yeah.
So however you start to manipulate the resistance over time is going to be progressive
Mm-hmm.
as long as you structure it in a way that you can measure to see that you are increasing more resistance and adapting to this new increased resistance over time. But
Yes.
progressive overload, typically it's only expressed in terms of you went heavier than last time, so
Mm-hmm.
you are stronger and keep going heavier, keep going heavier, keep going heavier. But like you said, like after a while, it's going to become a point where it's not, it's the diminishing returns aren't worth it
Not worth
And
it.
two, the abuse to your body is gonna start to be like, okay, like now you're gonna feel like you have to go heavier in order to just keep achieving more fitness. And it's
Yeah.
like that's not the case. You have to look for other ways to start challenging yourself, especially if you're not in a sport that requires just heavier numbers being lifted, aka like powerlifting or Olympic lifting.
Yeah. I think it's almost demoralizing because then if that's the only way that you're thinking about progressing numbers wise, then like at a point you're gonna be like, this is it for me. I'm not getting any better. So
Exactly.
there has to be other ways to kind of progress. And this is why I'm a big fan of RP and RIR. Yeah, RIR. Yeah.
Which one is
Um,
that one? RIR?
so RIR is reps in reserve. So how many reps you should have left in the tank. And then RP from the scale of 1 to 10, one being the easiest thing you ever done in your life, and 10 being the hardest thing you ever done in your life. Where does that number fit in?
Mm,
I use RPE for some people, for newer people, just because like, hey, what does that feel like from a scale of 1 to 10? Feels like a 5. We're warming up. Like these don't count as sets. Like you need to find like that true
yeah,
number of 7 to 9. Like that's how the numbers you should be training. But I'm starting to kind of move into reps in reserve because I feel like a lot of people still misconstrue their REI or the RPE because like they're not really thinking. People are so unconscious to training. So if you think about our reps in reserve, is like, all right, I want you to go as many reps as you can, but you're only leaving one or two reps in the tank. So if you do the percentages correctly and you do the weight correctly, like you're only doing it should be 6, but you might get 8. Cool. Like this is the effort. This is the effort that I want you to put in. So sometimes you don't even need numbers. Sometimes it's just like go until you can't. That's what you have left in the tank, and it's more on the relying on effort than it is anything else. So I like to use those numbers more than I like to use percentages because sometimes like you also got to think like percentages vary from day to day to week. Like I was just hung over as shit last week. There's no way I'm gonna be able to go up 5 pounds on my
yeah,
squat. Like, there's zero fucking chance. But that's just the normal way that we live. Like things are gonna occur. You're not gonna feel at 100%. So like using different methods, like instead of using percentages all the time, which are just fixed a lot of the times because they're mirroring your max number on the day that you did the best, like using RPE and seeing how you feel that day, using REI and seeing how you feel that day can still elicit a response that you guys want, like building muscle and effort without giving you the actual feel of like, I need to hit this number. If I don't hit this number, this day is a complete failure. That's the one thing I didn't like about bodybuilding. I mean, not bodybuilding, like powerlifting is like,
powerlifting.
I was like, if I'm not gonna hit this number today, like, what's the point of hitting of the number? It's so demoralizing. So, what other
Yeah.
way I do to actually like build that?
Wow, I never heard the term RIR. I'm gonna start using that a lot more.
Yeah,
I love that.
it's a little different. I mean, it gives people more of a number instead of like thinking
Yeah,
about like how you feel. Because a lot of people are so like lackadaisical about training, especially when they come to us. They want us to give them the answer. But if you don't tell me how you feel or how that number felt truthfully, like I don't know the right answer. But I can tell how many reps you had left in the tank.
for sure.
I literally can tell, like just looking at you. So if I want 1 or 2 reps left in the tank, I'm sorry, you got like about 5 more reps. That was nothing.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I'm saying?
reps in reserve is more objective than it is more like subjective, where RPE can be.
Exactly. So I'm a bigger fan of REI as of late, just because it gives people like a number to shoot for. Oh, like I want like 3 to 5 reps left in the tank because this is supposed to be more of a volume set or something like that. Or I don't want that much effort because I want you guys I want you to chill. You know what I mean? But like it's a different way of kind of thinking about RPE.
Yeah, for sure. And this conversation also makes me think about some athletes that I was working with the other week, and they're like, why did I feel like I'm getting weaker? Like, why do the squats feel heavier? And I'm like, I'm manipulating a lot of variables that as a coach I know, but as the athlete, you're probably not even paying attention to. Like getting
Exactly.
you to do something slower, the way we're warming up into the weight, doing some things prior to, which is kind of pre-exhausting you a little bit more because we're working on more fitness opposed to just all straight through lifting.
Yeah.
Adding pauses,
Yes.
adding a little more volume. So I'm trying to, like, one thing that I teach with my athletes too is this: there's a difference from just walking into a lift preparing for a big lift and treating strength training as more like fitness within a whole workout.
Exactly.
You know, so now I might be prepping to save this big moment for this number that I'm trying to hit for reps, opposed to using strength training into the integration of a full out workout where we're pretty much hitting like a full fitness, not like hit or anything like that, but it's not just preparing for one big lift and then the workout is kind of over because then you're kind of going, that's like testing. It's
Exactly.
different.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that like being hitting these max numbers all the time. I think it still happens in the culture, especially
And
like
it
with the
should.
yeah, like maxing all the time is an issue. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna destroy you. You can't progress 5 pounds every single time. Sub max is where you should live. Like that's
Yeah.
sub like I'm a big fan of like 75 to like 85% and maybe like a little bit above the 85 if I'm feeling juicy. Like those you perfect those numbers, like the other numbers are gonna go up.
Of course.
Light is not going to help anything, but also like the tempo, the pauses, like these things should make you feel weak because these are weak positions to be in and they
Mhm.
be pre-fatigue, but these are the things that make you strong. Like I had somebody be like the other day, and it's true too. It's like we're doing eccentrics. Like, hey man, like I need you to go a little slower. It's like I don't like eccentrics. It makes me feel weaker. That's the point. Like I'm not telling you this is for my health. I'm telling you because this is a weaker position. This will help you
Yeah.
get stronger at the long run. This will help you gain control, and control is what makes you get stronger. He's like,
Yes.
this makes me feel weaker. I was like, all right, man, if you're not gonna go slower, like that's on you. Like if you don't want to listen to my advice and do exactly what I'm telling you to do,
Hmm.
I can only do so much. But if it makes you feel weaker because like you're going down 10, 15 pounds from what you should and like not controlling it, who am I to tell you, buddy? Like you're right. The customer's always right, right? You're right. I'm sorry. I'm dumb. I didn't get I don't get
And the funny part is like what they're not considering is like when it's time for us to test, I'm preparing you for this moment. So in
exactly.
this phase of the plan, I'm manipulating certain factors. So when it's time for us to really have that moment where we're going all the way out, all the work that we're doing in the
Exactly.
plan is leading to that moment where it's time for us to show.
Exactly. And people don't realize how much slower it takes to max out. Like you're not
Yeah.
like that. You're not like sitting down, come back up. You need to come down. You need to control. You need to do the eccentric so you can feel the tension coming up. Hit a pause real quick and then explode right back up. These are the things that we're practicing when we're doing eccentrics and we're doing pauses. Is mimicking what it almost feels like to max.
Yes.
As like it's not realistically going to feel the same, but the mindset changes. The technique under you understand the technique of the movement. You're seeing what you're missing when you're doing eccentrics and you're doing your pauses. You're seeing where you need to be at to actually make it count or
Yep.
hit depth correctly. Again, this is all powerlifting kind of thought process. But again, if you're not doing the technique correctly, even in general fitness and general population in general and doing GPP stuff, like if they don't look even right when you're doing that, then it's still going to be an issue with injuries and other things. So this is why we do all this stuff. There's a
Yeah.
reason, there's a method to the madness. Eccentric pauses suck. We all do it. It's needed we have it in our programs for a reason.
Yeah. And then when you really start to think of strength just over time, it's like another coach put up a good question. He's like, what do you view as strength? And I was like, the ability to resist and the ability to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when we're looking at really bulletproofing our bodies and the strength, we want to be able to resist any external forces, right? And we want to be able to create tension to overcome any other forces. And we're trying to bulletproof ourselves in ways that we're allowed to do so. You
Exactly.
know, so if you just keep putting a ton of weight on an unstable foundation or a foundation that's lacking a lot of key components to be able to handle bigger loads, it's going to break eventually. Or it's going to get weakened and damaged, and then you're going to go down later in the years and saying, like, oh, I can't strength train anymore. And now you not being able to strength train, you're just going to start going down a rabbit hole into just everything starting to debilitate, which is
Exactly.
not what we do this for to begin with. You know, so if you're really not a competitor and you're really starting to look at, you know, strength for life, right? Which is kind of where this conversation is headed a little bit. You do have to approach some of these things a lot differently. You have to look at your body joint by joint. You have to look at your capabilities. You have to look at how you feel. And if you already know you feel shitty and you just decide like, all right, I'm just gonna continue to lift these bigger weights feeling shitty, what do you think is gonna happen 3 years from now?
Mm.
You
No,
know, and you're gonna build a bad relationship with strength training as that is, and you're just gonna associate strength training with heavy and pain.
yeah, which is not exactly what you want. It's like almost like kids back in the day who had to do fitness for punishment, and now they feel like fitness is a punishment, and now
Yeah,
they are, I mean, unhealthy. Let's just say unhealthy is the right word for that. So, yeah, I think it's very, it's if you want to train for life, you need to think of a different way than just looking at the numbers. Like as I get older, I don't give a shit about the numbers other than ones I'm chasing for goals. But like if I don't get there, I'm not gonna like not stop training because I also want to be able to move and do things I want to do. Like I'm thinking about like 10 years from now when I have kids, like I want to be able to like throw that little fucker like into the pool without hurting my back or like
yeah,
much like I'm thinking about things that I want to be able to do forever and be able to show people that I mean this is the healthy way of living.
for sure. And in the process, you're gonna feel strong and jacked and all of that good stuff that you want. You're gonna feel conditioned.
Mhm.
You're not gonna be as beat up and hurt, you
Yeah.
know. So these are all things you got to think about.
Anti-aging, all that shit. Like I'm gonna look like this, like till like I'm 50. Like I want to like no wrinkles, like maybe a grayish beard. I'll be good. I'll be cool with the silver fox look. Like I'll be cool with that. But yeah, you just gotta think long term. That's it.
And for me, like the something that I started thinking about too is like I feel more comfortable knowing that I can hit certain numbers for 20, 30, 40 years, opposed to feeling like I want to like I always said, I hit over a 500-pound squat before. I have no desire to want to do that again at my size.
Yeah,
You know, so now it's like if I can comfortably touch 3 wheels on a heavier day, if I could touch 4 wheels, which I haven't barbell squatted in a very long time, but I know I still have the ability to do so. That's enough tension and that's enough resistance that I'm able to overcome while still performing in all these other areas to keep my fitness nice and high. There's still good numbers to solidly walk around with. And
yeah,
being able to still lunge over 2 plates on my back and things like that. It's like I'm not gonna be chasing to try to put 5 wheels on my legs at this point. Like I'm a shorter frame, I'm a smaller guy. Like at some point it's just gonna be more damaging than good at this point. And now it's like, how do you perform with this strength base that you exist and find different ways to continue to increase your fitness and also increase the strength and other capacities that your body can handle.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is a silent monster. I don't need to. I don't need to be showing shit on Instagram and almost dying to like
And
feel
people
good.
get tired of being hurt, bro. Like
I'm
that's really
tired
what
of
it
being
is,
hurt.
yo.
But my back, my I tweaked my back in jujitsu, and like I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a day off. Like I don't need to train this way, or I had to like training with injuries. It's just like part of the game, but like being injured all the time. Like I remember being this injured all the time.
Yeah,
Like I'm just not like I'm not. I'm cool. I'm cool with taking a day off and like actually like relaxing, recovering, and not making the injury worse. Most
for
important thing.
sure. Yeah, I tweaked my back like the other week too. Nothing too crazy, but enough to where like a day or two I couldn't bend the right way. And it's
Exactly.
not even from like lifting heavy or nothing crazy because I just been boxing and doing
Yep.
like kettlebell flows for the most part recently. But I think it's the way I've been sleeping because my sleeping situation changed a little bit
Yeah.
recently. So my whole right side has been like fucked for like the past month.
Yeah.
And my
Damn.
erector strain. And I was like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, bro,
So now
yeah,
I'm sitting here thinking like
we're getting to the point where now when we sneeze the wrong way, we're gonna fuck up our backs. But we're not there yet, but we're getting there with our sleep and our being dumbasses and being competitive. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Same.
yeah. But yeah, it's like you really start looking at different ways to preserve the body. And it's like you can still get and people that are still in a phase of just thinking heavy numbers are gonna look at this conversation and be like, "Fuck what these guys are talking about," until they start getting to the point where they view it differently. Because
Exactly.
there's always resistance that's met with this conversation because a lot of context gets listened if you're not really listening to the full point in the conversation. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of gems in it. Like eventually, like the numbers aren't gonna be linear, like what you said earlier. Like everybody will be squatting 5 tons if you've been lifting since like your early 20s or mid teenagers. It's
Exactly.
like we don't have the ability to withstand 5,000 pounds on our frames,
Exactly.
so eventually, like, there has to be a cap to this thing.
For sure.
And like when you really start getting bigger numbers, the amount of time it takes to get an extra 5 or 10 pounds is fucking crazy, dude.
God. You get to the point where you start plateauing, like 5 or 10 pounds, like people dream of 10 pounds at a certain point. You know what I mean? It's like that's why like people who are like well-renowned powerlifters, like they'll probably go up only like 10, 15 pounds like every year.
Yeah,
If that.
after a
And
while it starts to
after
slow
a
down.
while, it just like just look the numbers
Yeah.
get like they can drastically go from like 50 in a year, then they go like 40.
Hmm.
Like it
The
seems
honeymoon phase.
exactly. So yeah,
And then it's like the amount of work that you have to do for those extra 10 to 15 pounds is not even close to the amount of work it took you to jump 100 pounds because you were new to it. So if
exactly.
you're new to lifting, you have this idea like, oh, this getting strong shit is easy, which
Yeah.
it is to a degree. And then you start running into new hurdles. And now it's like, well, why are my numbers jumping up 50 pounds every year like it did before? It's like, it's just not going to happen, bro. Like, you're a
Hey, I mean,
185
look,
pound guy, and you think you're gonna be bench pressing 700 pounds at this rate at 185?
people,
Like,
people even on juice and every single drug in the world can
yeah,
they barely do 10 to 15 pounds. Like once they get to that linear phase, once they get
that
to like
linear, yeah,
that phase, like take all the juice you want in the world, bro. You're never gonna be as strong as a gorilla, bro. It's not gonna
yeah.
happen.
And at this point, we are talking more advanced and elite
Yeah,
lifters. We're
super
not
elite.
talking beginners because a beginner, you can see their numbers fly up with the
High.
good technique and just a consistent program to follow. But when you start getting years into this thing, like your scope on how you do strength training really does start to change.
100%.
It puts things in more perspective for sure.
Yeah. All
We
right.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like always, like, subscribe, set your notifications for future content. Build the Savages will be coming back with more.
Yes, sir.